unfortunately, I can tell you that those bombings of often civilian settlements, well, they happen on a daily basis. It has been the most settlements being bombed last night, but there are victims, often civilians, on a regular day, while on every day, while the fighting is continuing. The situation on the front line is very, very dire. There's a lot of pressure on the Ukrainian army in the eastern part of the country. We've heard a lot about Avdiivka over the past few weeks. The Russian army has brought in thousands of soldiers, of additional soldiers, of equipment, of material there. They suffer heavy casualties, but the fighting is ongoing. The pressure is intense, not only just in Avdiivka, but also on the entire line in the east between Kupiansk and Kremina. And on the Ukrainian side, there's a lot of pressure in offensives in the sector of Bakhmut, as well as in the Zaporizhia regions, but the gains are minimal actually for both armies in their offensives.
Well, fighting is expected to slow as the weather worsens, winter approaches. Could the war enter a new phase?
Well, this is actually what Commander-in-Chief General Zaluzhny hinted at. He gave an interview in The Economist just yesterday, and he was saying that this war was gearing towards a stalemate, and he really fears that there's going to be a war of attrition, something quite similar to what we saw 100 years ago during World War I, where you had two armies which had equal equipment, an equal amount of men on the field. The only difference here is that in terms of equipment, in terms of manpower, Russia is a bigger country than Ukraine. It has more resources to renew its men through mobilizations. It has also more equipment, and the Western equipment that comes to Ukraine often comes a bit too late. Right now, we see the long-range missiles, which are proving to be efficient to organize deep strikes into Ukrainian occupied territories or within Russia territories. But those strikes happen maybe a year too late, and we really fear here that we're going to see a long war and a war of attrition, and with no end in sight.
Is Ukraine receiving just as much support internationally as it did before the world's attention started to turn towards the Israel-Gaza war?
It does receive equipment, and also General Zaluzhny was being thankful towards that in his interview, but he also stated the fact that often the delivery of this equipment is delayed. We still, here in Ukraine, haven't seen the F-16 planes, and when they will arrive early 2024, well, probably Russia will have strengthened its air defense as well. So will they be as efficient as they would have been had they been delivered a year ago? That is the question. The Western equipment is promised, is delivered, but it's only sufficient for Ukraine to maintain the status quo, and not for Ukraine to realize a major breakthrough, a breakthrough which, frankly speaking, we haven't seen in this counteroffensive which started early June.
So how likely do you think it is that another Ukrainian breakthrough can occur?
Well, it's very difficult to say at the moment. I'm quoting again from this interview because it comes from the commander-in-chief, and he hadn't talked about his own assessment of that counteroffensive since its beginning. He's saying that without a technology, an innovation breakthrough in how this war is being done, well, there's not a lot of chances for a breakthrough, because we have two armies which, with equal equipment at the moment, which face the same challenges, minefields, defense, very strongly built defenses. So only a different way of making this war with drones, with innovations in terms of technology could make a difference, and perhaps long-range missiles will make the difference in the weeks, in the months to come. But at the moment, we see we are really gearing towards a stalemate, which nobody really wants here.
Well, the UN says 40% of the population in Ukraine needs humanitarian assistance. Is enough aid able to get in?
Well, the entire population is affected by this war. There's millions of people who have left the country who now live as refugees abroad. There's also internally displaced people here, and those are the 40% of people who need help the most here. Of course, the government alone will not be able to support all the families affected. That's why the international humanitarian aid is also crucial to arrive in Ukraine. There will be a change of rules in terms of customs come December, and some people I've talked to are worried that aid will be that it will be difficult to bring in more aid. But in any case, it is direly needed, perhaps not necessarily here in Kyiv because it's not on the front line, but in the most affected regions of Ukraine, in the eastern part, in the southern part, this help is definitely needed.
Emmanuelle Chaze, thank you for updating us on the situation in Ukraine.
Thanks for having me.